The structure of American government invites the participation of interest groups at various stages of the policy-making process. Chapter 7 takes a closer look at these interests. Interest groups are a natural phenomenon. People like to join groups. Americans particularly like to join groups. Start with a couple of definitions. Interest group, that's an organization that actively attempts to influence government policy. Organized group of individuals that share common objectives, trying to influence policy. Another definition you need to know is a lobbyist. A lobbyist is an individual or organization who attempts to influence legislation and the administrative decisions of government. Interest groups proliferate in the United States because they can influence government at many points, and they do offer some incentives to their members. There are a number of incentives, but one of the issues that you need to know for your quiz, one of the problems for interest groups, is what's called a free rider. People can achieve the benefits of the organization without actually joining the group. Perfect example, AARP. If you're over 50 and you don't belong to AARP, AARP is still looking out for your interests on the issues that affect you the most. One point I want to make here is political scientists draw a distinction between interest groups and political parties. Parties nominate candidates for office, contest elections, and seek to operate the government. Interest groups do not seek to operate the government, even though they often support candidates who will promote their interests if elected. There are many types of interest groups. The group with the largest number is economic interest groups. You see business interest groups like the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, agricultural interest groups, the American Farm Bureau Federation, your county farm bureaus, your labor interest groups, AFL-CIO, trying to influence policy in a direction favorable to organized labor, public employee unions, by National Education Association. Each local government has a number of public employee unions that they deal with. Interest groups of professionals, the American Bar Association. You also have your organized poor. In general, those living in poverty lack the time and money to join interest groups, but may be represented by others. Brief look at the union membership. You see in the public sector, the number of union members has stayed fairly steady over the years, while the number of union members in the private sector declined significantly since 1948, and also the total workforce union membership is down as well. Other types of interest groups, environmental groups. They're interested in policies affecting the environment, global issues, as well as national or state issues that focus on preservation of resources, land, and wildlife. The Sierra Club is an excellent example of an environmental interest group. Public interest groups, often consumer groups. You have Common Cause, you have the League of Women Voters, you have a consumer movement led by Ralph Nader. Other interest groups, you have single interest groups, such as the AARP, National Rifle Association, and you also have foreign interest groups. Interest groups can be powerful based on three major factors. One, the size of their membership and the size of financial resources. Two, individual leaders with power and charisma. Or three, cohesiveness, or how strongly members of the group believe in their cause and how hard they are willing to work for an issue. Interest groups use direct and indirect techniques to influence government. Direct techniques include testifying before committees and rulemaking agencies, providing information to legislators, rating legislators' voting records, building alliance, aiding political campaigns. One thing that's important to know for your quiz is the endorsement of an interest group for a candidate is important because that group can publicize its endorsement to all of its members. It's a very important step for a candidate that when the group endorses, the group can publicize to all of its members. Some of the indirect techniques that are used to influence the government include campaigns to rally public sentiment, letter writing campaigns, efforts to influence the climate of opinion, and the use of constituents to lobby for the group's interests. The 1946 Legislative Reorganization Act was the first attempt to control lobbyists and their activities through registration requirements. The United States Supreme Court narrowly construed the act as applying only to lobbyists who directly seek to influence federal legislation. In 1995, Congress approved new legislation requiring anyone who spends 20% of his or her time influencing legislation to register as a lobbyist. Also, any organization spending more than $24,500 semi-annually and any individual who's paid more than $6,000 semi-annually for his or her work must register. Semi-annual reports must include the names of clients, the bills in which they are interested, and the branches of government contacted. In 2007, in response to lobbying scandals, Congress tightened rules on giving gifts to legislators and increased reporting requirements for lobbyists to 4 times a year. Under the 2007 reform legislation, lobbyists now have to report contributions to coalition efforts. Congress has created a searchable online database of lobbying information. Please use this video as well as your study guide to prepare for your weekly quiz. Good luck.